let's start by baffling you with statistics. Okay, I'll throw some numbers at you. Just I selected from a whole bunch of different sources here. My former clients, actually, C&W Group, old friends, have been running this thing called the Social Media Reality Check for about 3 years now. They go out and they do a big survey to try and figure out, is this stuff real, what's happening? And the numbers keep trending up. They now say that 66% of Canadian online consumers are using social media at least once a day. Now, Facebook Canada and others will give you higher penetration rates in terms of, how many people are using Facebook, how many people are using Twitter in Canada. But I thought this is like, okay, you may have a Facebook account, but how active are you? Well, so they asked, if you're using one of these social media services, how often do you actually really check it and go in and do anything? At least once a day, 66% of people. And what are they doing? They're looking for stuff to purchase very often. They're doing research, they're chatting with friends, they're connecting with communities. But I thought, okay, so people are actually going out there to do informed shopping, essentially. Facebook, we can't escape it. It is enormous. I'll come back to Facebook in a minute. Just to give you a kind of scale of the thing. So there are 19.7 Facebook accounts in Canada. 19.7 million. We've got the M word there. 19.7 million Facebook accounts, of which 12 million people are logging in every single day. That's an enormous, enormous audience. As it says here, it's more than 4 times the audience of Hockey Night in Canada. And yet, guess how much it costs to buy like a 30-second advert if you wanted to promote something in a break on Hockey Night in Canada? It costs an enormous amount of money. You can run an incredibly powerful, successful advert on Facebook for about $500. And have all sorts of wonderful things come out of it, which again, I'll come back to. Other interesting thoughts I picked up along the way. 74% of consumers nowadays are making their purchase decisions based on what somebody else said, right? If you think about retention rates, Facebook themselves went out and did some research into how they're changing the world of advertising and unaided retention, one of those wonderful marketers' expressions. Right? The idea that, without actually being prompted, somebody can be led to say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that advert. People are 68% more likely to recall that one of their friends liked something than they say, well, an advert for the same thing. And, this is the power of social influence for you, 300% more likely to act based on a friend's recommendation, which is, of course, it's human nature, right? If my dad says it's okay, or one of my buddies says it's okay, then I'm probably going to skip through a couple of steps and say, oh, well, yeah, I might buy that. I might look at that. Still not convinced? Let's go one level deeper. Most recently, the same guys, C&W Group and Leger Marketing, this big research firm, went out and they said, okay, how does this stuff influence you? What kind of trust do you really place in social media? And the question was, I would trust social media to help me make decisions on, and then they had a whole list of things. This has got to excite you. 64% of people say, yeah, I'll trust social media to help me decide what kind of books I want to buy. Because one of my friends, he's a friend or she's a friend because we have shared interests, because we think alike, we like the same things. And one of my buddies says, I just read this terrific vampire teen fiction crap. You go, oh, I love vampire teen fiction crap. And you'll buy that as well. Again, it's the power of influence. Books and music are the top here. I found it a little bit surprising when some of the other questions came, like buying a new car. I'm going to buy a car based on what my friends say. Well, it's only 42%, it's not quite as strong. I'm very encouraged to note that not many people are making their financial decisions and deciding which stocks to buy based on the fact that this idiot over here thinks it's a goer. But this is extraordinary. 64% making decisions on what books to buy based on stuff they find out on social media. That, I thought, was fascinating. The challenge, of course, is one thing that we haven't addressed is that this landscape is, as I've said, enormous, right? With these, 19.7 million people in Canada on Facebook, with all these millions and millions and millions of blogs, and all these masses and masses of stuff out there on Twitter. There's we now have the sum of all human knowledge in the palms of our hand. I just added this slide last night because I found this image and it blew my mind. You probably recognize the original Escher image where Moritz Escher took this wonderful mirrored ball and did a self-portrait. Well, that's Jimmy Wales in the middle. That's the guy who founded Wikipedia. And it's just, I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful little idea. But okay, so here's the problem. Yes, we've got the sum of all human knowledge at our fingertips. That can be incredibly daunting because there's so much stuff out there. How is anybody going to stumble across your own little contributions? How is anybody going to be able to find, or how do you know if anyone's going to be interested in what you write, what you create, what you publish? It's moments like this we go through these soul-searching moments of self-doubt. Again, you may have seen this comment before. It wasn't Nelson Mandela, by the way. This is often attributed to Mandela's inaugural speech. He never said this. Marianne Williamson, who's a bit of a strange, charismatic Christian lady, I'm not entirely sure I agree with a lot of what she says, but this little point resonated. We ask ourselves, well, amongst all this stuff out there, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous and talented and fabulous? Who are you not to be? You have to have some faith that the stuff that you're producing, the material, the content that you're creating, is of value. And I guarantee that there are people out there who will want to find it. The first step is just making it available to them. So okay, so how do we go about that? Let's get a bit more practical. We're going to need a plan. We need to figure out, okay, how do we take our first steps into this area? Or maybe not our first steps. Maybe you're already there. How many of you here are already blogging, for example? Not enough of you. Good to see a smattering of hands going up, but not nearly enough. So okay, so how do we get started? Most of you in the room are creators. The thing I'm going to suggest that you do first of all is don't go throwing your stuff out there online. Yet. There is an essential first step that a lot of people miss. I think step one in any successful social media program, social media life, if you will. Step one is also an ongoing requirement, something that you have to continue to do, is not the writing, is not the contributing. You've all seen things like the comment threads on cbc.ca. You go and read a news story and then you look at the comments. Have you ever done this? It's a mosh pit. It is a sink of the foulest stench of humanity. The people who comment on news stories should have their ankles pinned and they should be exposed on a mountain. These people are just, I don't know where they come from. And they've missed step one, right? They've gone straight from, like, oh, it's social media. I can contribute. I can comment. And so they comment. No. Don't do that just yet. First of all, you've got to grow way bigger ears. I do adore this photo. I found this a few years ago on Flickr. Most of my photos are sourced from people on Flickr. And I try and give them credit wherever possible. I have no idea who this young lady is, but she's so delightful. And she makes the point. Step one really has to be learning how to listen. Learning how to figure out who's out there, what are they interested in, how can I interact, how can I provide some value, how can I, in other words, find that audience that matches what I'm able to contribute. Well, I've used the word find all sorts of times. You can probably guess where this is heading. What are we going to do? Quick, Batman, to the Googles. First thing we've got to do is learn how to search. But this is not just a case of saying, okay, well, I'm a specialist in 00 gauge model railways. So I need to find all the people who are interested in reading about restoring beaten up old original Hornby train sets. So I'm just going to go and Google it. trouble is that can be very frustrating, as I'm sure anybody would recognize. Trying to find exactly the kind of things that you want on Google can be frustrating. So let me show you a few. This is where we dive deep for a couple of minutes, and then I'll try and lift you back up out of it, and we'll have a bit more fun. Show you a few things. How many people here use Google Reader? 1, 2, excellent. Good start. 2.5. Forget about the Google search engine for a moment. I want to reintroduce you to an old friend of mine. Something that I started using a while back. It was built by a couple of guys who I happen to know are just extraordinary developers. And I started using it when they first launched it and loved it, and then it has kind of wandered away for a while. I've come back to it. It is a wonderful piece of technology. Ignore for a moment all the rest of the garbage that's on this screen, all of my subscriptions. Focus on the little red button up there, the subscribe button. Because this gets really interesting. This is useful listening tools 101. Okay. The subscribe button is built around a technology called RSS. Excuse me while I get into the techie stuff for 2 moments. Quick word on what RSS is all about. When the web started, when it was a read and unidirectional kind of thing, you'd find a news site that you're interested in, right? Or you'd find a website that you liked, or you'd find maybe a blog, an early blog. And you thought, well, I like this is good stuff. And then you'd bookmark it. And you'd go back to those bookmarks, and you'd click down your radio dial, go and read this one, and go and check this one, go and look at the Globe and Mail, go and look at the Star.com. So you would go out this way from your laptop to these news sites and blogs and try and find if there's any new updated stuff. What RSS does is it basically gets rid of all that need. It's this wonderful little bit of technology that you don't need to know how it works. It sits in the middle and lets you say, I like this particular blog, or I like reading news stories about this, bring them to me. Let me subscribe to this stuff and bring it to me. And I'll show you very quickly how it works. So let's say, for example, your métier, your particular oeuvre is all focused on, fantastical beasts, unicorns, should we say. Let's start with unicorns, why not? So go and do a search on Google to find who else out there is interested in unicorns. Now, this is not regular, ordinary Google, though. Again, a lot of people who use Google use it, and they do their basic search, and they don't go any further. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll find there's this list of all these other types of Googling that you can do. And you click the More button, and one of the types that you'll find, you can do blog searches. So we're not just searching for stuff, we're searching for stuff written by interested individuals. I won't have time to talk to you too much about it, but the discussions search is very interesting as well. That looks at discussion forums and Twitter feeds and all sorts of interesting stuff like that. So I go and search for unicorns through the Google blog search, and here's a whole bunch of other people writing about unicorns. Kindred spirits. I found some of my audience. Now what I want to do is start to learn about that audience and keep tabs on them. So you scroll all the way down to the bottom of your Google search page here, and you'll find, my mouse keeps going twitchy, come back beast, there you go. Thank you. You'll find this thing. This wonderful little thing that lets you subscribe to the search feed. In other words, Google will sit off there. The mighty Google is now your slave. It will sit out there in wherever the hell they are in California, searching for new stuff that your kindred spirits have written about unicorns, or whatever the heck the content might be. And when there's new stuff available, it will bring it to you. So you click that little link, and it will say, oh, you're not quite subscribed to this feed yet. One last little confirmation. You click the subscribe button there, and now at the bottom of my list of stuff I'm interested in, just right down here, Google is gathering up all of the new stuff, all the interesting stuff on unicorns that hits the web every single day and bringing it to me. Now, obviously, to get this started, you need to have a Google account. So if you haven't already got one, go to google.com, go to gmail.com, get yourself a Google account, start using the reader, and start doing this sort of active listening to go out and find, who is in my audience, who out there is interested in this stuff. This is step one. I want you to do this through blog searches, through Twitter searches. Think about all of the themes and topics in your work, all the stuff that you write about that people might be interested in. Because I guarantee there are people out there who are interested in it. And this is a great way to start finding them. So RSS and rinse and repeat. Keep doing it. Keep going back through and looking at this stuff. Now, there's a next step, which, again, if I had 2 hours, I'd talk to you in more detail about how this works. There is a next important step. There's a friend of mine down in Massachusetts who says, if you're just doing the research part without the analysis, then that's kind of trivial pursuit, right? It's garbage. You have to think about what you're finding. For example, you might be doing your research, you might be finding all these other people who are also interested in unicorns and mythical beasts of that sort. And in your daily trawl of the stuff that Google's delivering into your inbox, all of a sudden, people start talking about purple unicorns instead of traditional white unicorns. So you should think about that and think, oh, what have I got to offer on the subject of purple unicorns that I could go out and talk about? What you want to do, in other words, is start thinking about how do I, now that I've got a sense of who's out there and what they're talking about and what the topics and trends are, how do I start getting involved in this? How do I start scattering some useful breadcrumbs around? Because this is the next step. And this is the step that, unfortunately, cbc.ca commenters leap to first without going through the prior step. So you find the people, you find the issues, you've read up on this stuff, you can learn what people are interested in. Now it's appropriate to start participating. Start doing things like commenting on posts. Let's say that you are, I don't know why I've got this whole kind of mythical vampire theme going on this morning. And maybe you are the next Stephanie Meyer. You might be, okay? So there's a ton, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like if you're not actually interested in vampire fiction, don't do this. But if you go out and look at the people who are interested in that stuff, my God, there's a mass of stuff out there. There's an enormous, enormous fan base of very, very active people. Some of them creating these blog posts and like continuing storylines based on Stephanie Meyer's books, and they get tons of engagement, tons of people commenting. If that happens to be your particular area of interest, then what you want to start doing is popping up in that neighborhood. Start contributing. But don't throw a blog out there and expect everybody's going to be to pass your door. Instead, you start commenting, start adding your voice to the conversation. Letting those writers know that they found, here's a kindred spirit, here's somebody who shares my interests. Or maybe, here's my arch nemesis. Here's somebody who contradicts everything I say. All I'd ask you to do is, if you're doing this, try and add value, right? You're not there to promote your book. That comes later. What you're there to do is basically show that you are somebody who is in this thought track, somebody who's in this ecosystem, and it allows you to kind of get the feel of the space before you dive in too deep. And the next thing you're going to do, after you started doing this for a while, and I say some of you are already at this point, the next thing you're going to do is the Cookie Monster maneuver. Now you can well imagine this. He is Cookie Monster, and he's sitting there with this wonderful fruit salad in front of him. What do you think Cookie Monster's thinking right now? Say it with me, actually. What does he say? No. I went too far. I spoiled the joke. What Cookie Monster's actually thinking is this. And that's what I want you to think as well. But here's why. I want you to think in terms of a hierarchy of content, at the center of which is the W, and then the T, and then the F. Right? This is how your content life is going to evolve online. Yeah, I know, actually, when I say website, I really mean blog, but BTF just isn't as funny, is it? I tried hard not to force that joke, but, Look, this is the world that you're now going to start inhabiting. You're going to have to think of these things in shells. I will try and step you through the shells and how they work, again, without being able to drill too deep into it. But think WTF, think of things in that order. A lot of people think Facebook first. Corporations, I know, in particular, come to us all the time and say, we need a Facebook strategy, or we want to be on Pinterest, or we need to be in Twitter. And my response is always, well, hang on, what's your content strategy? What have you got to offer? Here's one of the things. Facebook, fantastic, right? Enormous, enormous. Everybody's on Facebook, so we've got to be on Facebook. I had this conversation very recently with a luxury goods manufacturer. They said, we have to be on Facebook. And I was sitting in a meeting room with their advertising agency. Their agency said, yeah, we've got to be on Facebook. Okay, why? Well, and they threw all those stats that I just threw at you, like 19.7 million Canadians, 12 million Canadians logging in every day. You're gonna be on Facebook because everybody's on Facebook. This is a luxury goods manufacturer. And I said, okay, how much advertising do you do in the Toronto Star? We don't. We don't advertise in the Toronto Star at all. We advertise in the Globe, of course, but not in the Toronto Star. How much advertising do you do in the Sun? Well, we don't advertise in the Sun. We advertise in the Globe and Mail. Right. But the Toronto Star and the Toronto Sun are the two biggest circulation newspapers in the country. Everybody's there. Everybody reads the Toronto Star. You've got to be in the Toronto Star. No. Our audience isn't there. Bingo. And sorry for the little aside, I have to rant about this. Because everybody comes to us and says, we need a Facebook strategy. No. You need, first of all, a content strategy. You need to figure out what's my content. And hey, you're, many of you, writers, right? So if you can't get this part right, then God help us all.